And welcome to the Midday Show. I'm Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. Before we get to I Said is the story of the decade, personally. It's an unbelievable story about what happened in the final hours of the Afghanistan evacuation. We also have some funny food debates that we thought were worth talking about as well. But before we do any of that, we're going to bring on Cory Giger. He is a Penn State football beat writer. Obviously, college football is back in full swing, and Penn State's got a big one coming up. So before we bring Cory on, and Cory doesn't know this yet, but the most important question of every day, Mark, the people want to know, before Labor Day weekend, how are you feeling?
Well, I'm good because it is Labor Day weekend. We got a Friday football slate. I'm broadcasting tonight on webweeklylive.com. We'll be carrying them in Toursville, Lewisburg game. Okay. We've also got the first real weekend of college football, but on a more, intimate level here, I have this idea, and I come in, I was like, hey, we're going to have Cory Giger on, and we're going to talk about Penn State football. And because I'm an old guy and I've done a lot of radio, in the radio days, all you did was call him.
Yes.
And then you were there. And Jeff's like, well, it's not that easy. Do you have any email? Do you have this? Has he ever done these Zooms? Does he know it? Right. And I was like, so this is 20 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And so I'm just happy that we got it all worked out. And I'm relieved because if the show was ruined before it started today, it would have been all my fault.
It is just funny because it's not even your fault. You just don't know. Like in your world,
in my world, we have plenty of time.
Yes, in your world, like you just get Cory Giger and he comes on the show and he talks and everything's great. In my world, 20 minutes before the show, when you basically say like, oh, by the way, a guest is coming on, like I'm rumbling through chords, like I'm getting another screen ready. Like it is a completely different world, yours from mine, when we decide to have a guest.
What's great about it, and then we'll get Cory on because he doesn't want to listen to us babble. But there are two reactions to that when I bring this. Sure. You could either be the person who, like in the cartoon, like their head pops open and the steam comes out and you scream at me, or you could just kind of roll your eyes and be like, oh, great. And you're the eye roller who's like, my God, he's an idiot. But at least there's no outward tension. Like I can tell, like, oh, I just made Jeff's work a lot harder, but you don't yell at me, which I appreciate.
Because if we're going to do it, there is no time to yell.
See, that's why I waited long enough.
Your greatest skill in life is waiting until the exact moment where they'll still say yes, but there's officially no time to actually like be upset.
And I don't even plan that. It's just a gift.
Oh, yeah, it's a gift. It is a gift. We'll go ahead and we'll bring Cory on. He recently is joining DKPittsburghSports.com, and this always takes a second, so bear with me. But Cory, can you hear us?
What is this Zoom thing, you guys? What are these interwebs thing?
You never heard of it? Yeah. Cory's old like me. Jeff saw this newfangled, So anyway, how are you doing? I mean, this is college football. You follow Penn State football a little.
Yeah, I cover Penn State football. I'm wearing my Altoona Curve jersey I've got because I cover the Altoona Curve here also. But I think you'll be able to appreciate that. I host a radio show at 4 o'clock. It actually starts at 4:06, okay? I roll into the studio about 4:02, sometimes 4:04. Sometimes I'm in the last 45 seconds. So I'm right there with you in terms of waiting until the last second.
I've had those days where the producer has texted me and I said, I'm in the parking lot. I'll be there.
Well, even better, when we were –
what's a producer?
When we were
12 years, it's always been just me.
Look at you.
Just him. So when we were brainstorming names to call the show, we came up with the Midday Show, and someone asked me, why do we call it the Midday Show? And I said, because then we can start it whenever we want. As long as it's between like 11 and 1, we're on time.
We're midday. So anyway, I got this idea with Penn State football rolling. I was like, my first thought, and this is going to sound like I'm here just to blow sunshine, but I'm not really a sunshine blower. But I was like, hey, does anyone know how to get in touch with Cory Giger? Because I read your stuff. I've been reading it for years here locally. They run you in the Sun Gazette all the time. I don't know what the affiliation is and why, but when it's a Penn State football weekend, there's always something from you. So you were the first one that came to mind. And I guess my first question is, like, we are out of the gate. There are no cupcakes. Last week, even, Nebraska was at Illinois, which is a conference game. Last night, Ohio State and Minnesota. And Penn State, of all the juggernaut, they go to Wisconsin. Like, they are diving into the pool this year. There is no tiptoeing in. So what is the Big Ten thinking with this scheduling? Do you know?
Yeah, they're thinking, let's make some money. Let's get some good games on early, and we're going to get people to watch, and these games will make money. And look, I love it. I think college football fans love it. I don't think coaches like it. I know James Franklin doesn't like it. They would rather play Kent State or somebody like that and get a warm up and then play this game, later on. But hey, look, the bottom line is you've got to have what's called inventory. Everybody loves inventory. That's the technical word for, these games and broadcasts and things. And that's what the Big Ten wants. They want to give these networks big time inventory the first, second week of the season. And this will get a huge rating for sure. There's no question. These are Penn State's a huge national program. Wisconsin has a big following. So that's very appealing to these TV networks early on.
So it's a noon kick, right?
Yep.
It's noon on Fox, I want to say. Penn State's like a 5.5-point underdog. Well, last year, obviously, with COVID, the world was a mess anyway. But Penn State, with a kind of a season for the ages for the wrong reasons. They started out, they couldn't beat anybody. Clifford got benched after having a good year the year before and expectations, and then he underachieved immensely, got benched for like a half. Then he came back and was like a new guy. And they started awfully and finished really well. So, what do you think going into this year? Where do you see them at?
Yeah, right. You probably put an asterisk on last year. James Franklin's family was away for the whole season. His daughter has sickle cell, so they were trying to protect her from COVID. And that's important. That's, when we talk about last season, in sports, we can talk about on the field and performance and everything. But it was just a really tough season for Penn State off the field. James Franklin's a very routine-oriented person. He had his family taken away. He was living by himself, and so he was thrown off. Then you go out and you lose your opener on what I thought was a bad call on a 2-point conversion at Indiana. I think Penn State actually won that game.
You know why you thought it was a bad call? Because it was a bad call.
I thought it was a bad call, and I don't generally blame refs or anything like that. But I think Penn State, if they win that game, well, maybe it's not the kick in the teeth like it ended up being for all those kids. And then, boom, you got to turn around and play Ohio State the very next week. The season was over. Their season goals were over after 2 weeks. And that really took the toll, I think. We're talking 18 to 22-year-old kids. So this year they hit the refresh button. Yeah, it's tough. You go to Wisconsin, it's going to be really difficult. And, we can talk about the game. I picked them to lose. But I think this team, even if they do lose tomorrow, will be better suited to take everything in and not let that just spiral out of control.
So, when you look, what do we know about Wisconsin? I hear the names. I hear they have another great running back. The things about Wisconsin football, Russell Wilson played there for a year, and he's like a Hall of Fame quarterback. But they are a team with the big, the dairy farm cow, offensive lineman and a running back that's going to be in Heisman contention. And that's kind of what we've come to know for Wisconsin football. But now I hear they have weapons on the outside, maybe the best receiving core they've ever had. What do we expect from the red shirts? White, yeah, they'll be in red, the red and white tomorrow.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. They're going to run the ball. They got a bunch of 300-pound offensive linemen like they always do. They're going to run. They don't necessarily have the superstar running back right now. They're trying to find the right guys. They got a transfer from Clemson. He won the starting running back job. But what they have is the highest rated recruited quarterback in Wisconsin history. His name's Graham Mertz. He's a 4-star guy. The number 3 pro-style quarterback in the country coming out of high school. So he can throw the ball. All right, so Wisconsin, you know what they can do on the ground, but what's going to make this Wisconsin team potentially dangerous, and we'll see if Paul Chryst does this with the program going forward, if you can add that element of really being able to throw the ball effectively, you take yourself to a different level. Because if you're Wisconsin and everybody knows you can run, but hey, now you can throw real well, that is a major formula for Wisconsin to take their program to the next step. So Graham Mertz, a sophomore quarterback, he has a chance to be really good. And you catch Penn State by surprise if you're throwing some, a little bit more than expected tomorrow. I'm interested to see, because Wisconsin typically outside of Russell Wilson has always basically had game managers at quarterback.
Have either of you two ever been to Madison? Because like Scott Van Pelt, Ryan Russillo, these guys always talk about that it is a great college town.
No, I've never been to Madison.
I love it. I've been 3 times. The first was 2006, the week that Joe Paterno had his leg broken in that collision on the sideline with Andrew Corliss. Real quick story. I'll tell this in 30 seconds. This was 2006, my first year on the Penn State beat. I'm in Madison. Joe used to do this get-together with the media on Friday nights and kind of talk off the record, do a little drinking, have some fun. Coaches don't do this. Nobody does this. But Joe would sit down with us for 30, 45 minutes. Jeff Rice from the CDT had written a story about how Wisconsin had a good coaching transition in place after Barry Alvarez. And so Joe and his wife, Sue, they got the CDT on their doorstep at their house in State College. And Joe says to Jeff Rice during this Friday meeting, "I just want you to know my wife doesn't like you." Because he's talking about the next coach. And so I'll always remember that. That was my very first trip to Madison. And again, and 15 hours later, Joe has his leg broken on the sidelines in that trip.
Unbelievable.
Do you have an alibi?
No, it wasn't me.
Where were you?
It was Andrew Corliss, and I think the guy's name was DeAndre Levy, a linebacker from Wisconsin. We both crushed into him on the sideline.
Well, here, we don't want to take up all your day, and we'll let you go here. But just
Do I get to ask a question?
Do you want to? Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted.
No, you go ahead. Dive right in.
Listen, I find Franklin fascinating. Like him, Mark and I are both high school coaches. Just kind of like his whole philosophy and the things he does. One of the things that I was looking forward to, especially like after 2019, going into 2020, is it was the first time the roster was fully his. Like there was not really one person remaining on the roster from the previous era or anything else. And so it wasn't so much that 2020 was a letdown, but like there were these ideas built around the idea that Franklin was in control now and these were his kids. And one of them was speed, speed, speed. And I don't know if we've really seen that yet. Do you think that that's something we'll finally see in 2021? Because it was something that was very harped on when he first came in.
Yeah, I do think that's a good point. I do think that's something that the program has really taken strides in to try to get up to that, not be a traditional plodding Big Ten team. Because the bottom line is, if you want to achieve your goals, you've got to beat at some point an Alabama or a Clemson or these Southern teams that do have all the speed. So I think James, look, they've recruited well. They have the number 1 recruiting class in the country right now. They won't finish number 1, but as of right now, they do. So he's done a good job bringing in speed, a lot of skill here. The defensive line is a concern for me. I'm picking them to lose tomorrow because I don't think they're going to be able to handle Wisconsin's running game right off the bat. If they played in 3 weeks, maybe it's different, and I would pick Penn State to win. But Penn State's going to go in there with a lot of weapons on both sides of the ball. Sean Clifford is going to have to play well because he didn't play well last year. If he plays well, this could be a really, really good team because they've got speed at the receiver spots and a lot of running back depth. This might be the best secondary they've ever had, ever. I mean, that's saying something for Penn State. So if Sean Clifford plays well and in this Mike Yurcich offense, this could be a really good season. If he doesn't play well or if he gets hurt, you bring 6-6 into the equation.
I've seen every time they bring up the stats of the best teams who have not made the playoff system in the last however many years, Penn State is always near the top or at the top with number of wins, even coming off the disappointing year of last year. Are they close to breaking through? I know with Ohio State in their conference, it's tough to get over Ohio State, but with Michigan down, the number 2 spot in the Big Ten is very much up for grabs. Is Penn State ready to make that move?
Not this year. I don't think. Not for a top 4 playoff spot. I do believe the playoff will expand, and I think it'll go to 12. We'll see. That there's kind of been some talk lately, though, that maybe that won't happen. If it goes to 12, if it were 12, Mark, in 2016, Penn State would have made it. They would have made it in 2017. They would have made it in 2018, and they would have made it in 2019. So in a 4-team playoff, it's going to be tough. It's always going to be tough because you're in a division with Ohio State. But once the playoff expands, and especially if it goes to 12, I'll say this: Penn State should be in a playoff at least every other year. If you're Penn State and you got 107,000 people and you've got all the resources, if you're not one of the top 12 teams in the country, then something's gone really wrong. So, like I said, they would have made it 4 years in a row if it were 12. And in a couple years, once it gets to 12, I think Penn State. Now, are they going to be a number 10, 11, 12 seed, or are they going to be a number 4, 5, 6 seed? Because that's a difference. Are you just getting into the playoff, or are you going to get into a playoff with a chance to win some games? That's where James Franklin's got to get the program over the next couple of years.
Nice. Awesome, Cory.
All right. You got another one, Jeff, before we go?
I'm just happy I got one in.
Well, I didn't.
I was just my one. I'm good. I'm looking for the speed, and I'm happy I got to ask it. I appreciate. Thank you for giving me the airtime between you and Cory to ask one.
Cory, if you want to stay on, I'll just step out. I've had enough of this abuse for one day.
Yeah, I like talking. I talk for a living along with Wright, so talking is fun. Hey, look, here's the bottom line for me though. I'm just glad we got football season back. I love college football season. It's a blast. And so last year was really just a disaster with the 0-5 start. This Penn State team should be fine. Got to have Sean Clifford play well, but it should be a fun team to watch. I can't wait to see this offense. I'm a big offense guy. I want to see them go out there and score 40 points a game.
Tomorrow at noon, Fox, Penn State at Wisconsin. Right now, Wisconsin, according to my phone, is a 5.5-point favorite. I think I was on CBS Sports. But it's right around there. Less than a touchdown, so it'll be fun. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks, Cory. And again, you can find Cory on DKPittsburghSports.com. Any other plugs, Cory, real quick before you go?
I at Cory Giger on Twitter. I like to interact with people on there too. So I enjoy hearing from fans. Just like I host a daily radio show, I like callers calling in. I like hearing what fans have to say.
Awesome. Thanks, Cory.
Hey, all right, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
All right. Not bad. That was good.
I will say this, whether you're a Penn State fan, whether you're a Notre Dame fan, I've told people I'm neither. I'm a Susquehanna fan. But we're in North Central Pennsylvania, when Penn State's good and Notre Dame are good, it makes college football season a lot more fun. Well, I know people, if you love one, you hate the other, and you want them to lose every week. But if Notre Dame's 3-3, or if Penn State's 4-5, it's just a lot of the shine comes off of the fall.
I've always said, I'm not a Penn State football fan, but I've always said when Penn State's in it, like when they're in the thick of it, you can just feel there's an energy in Central PA that just is non-existent when they're down.
I agree.
And it just makes everything more, people are just happier. Like I know that's corny and Happy Valley and everything, but it's real. It's very, very real.
It is real. I agree with you. The energy is a good word. There's an electricity in the air, and there's an energy about when Penn State's winning. And, people, they'll talk about it all week. When they're 4-1 or 8-1, and they're talking about you'll know on Tuesday what Minnesota has, what they did, who we got next week after this, and it is a lot of fun.
It's really changed it. Thanks again to Cory. Again, you can check him out at DKPittsburghSports.com, and hopefully we get to have him on again sometime.
Yeah,
That's good. I'll let you decide. Do you want to talk? We can talk about hot dogs and ice cream, or we can talk about the Pineapple Express.
Let's
story.
save the Pineapple Express for the end, because that's the best story.
Let's do this.
And we're just going to bring up the hot dogs and pineapple. There are other ways that people are dropping dead, apparently, that has nothing to do with COVID. So this is one of the scarier stories you'll ever hear.
Yeah. So you can find this all over there. A bunch of different networks put this out. Eating a hot dog could take 36 minutes off of your life. A study is saying from the University of Michigan. First thoughts. My first reaction when I saw this was, no way. What was your initial reaction? Just your gut?
I started trying to calculate how many hot dogs I've eaten in my life and how many years I'm scared. This is damaging.
For you. You've had that many hot dogs in your life.
Oh my gosh, at the Little League field. During Little League season, you eat a hot dog 5 nights a week.
I forgot baseball games and that. So here's the deal. They published this in a journal called Nature Food. They looked at 5,853 different foods that were in the U.S. diet. and they tried to measure their effect, but instead of measuring it in like calories or fats or carbohydrates, they tried to measure
In
it
just deaths.
They tried to measure it in minutes of healthy life gained or lost. So a hot dog came out to 36 minutes off of your life.
Is that
for
the
every
worst
hot
thing they
dog.
found? Like, is it better to eat gravel than it is to eat a hot dog?
So I do know processed meat is obviously the culprit. Like that
Right.
is the reason for it. I'm going down through this now. I do not see another food lifted. Like I don't have a comparison. For
Okay.
you, unfortunately.
It is one of those things they've always joked about, what's in a hot dog. And it's one of the things that now I've seen when people are like, I'm not taking the COVID shot. I don't know what's in it. And people are like, you've eaten 1,000 hot dogs. You have no idea what's in that. But that has been the sausage and hot dogs has been the long time joke that it's like, when you eat a chicken leg or you eat,
Right.
know what part it came from. When you eat a hot dog or a sausage, you're like, what part is this?
Sure. So there is the healthiest foods. You'll love this.
If you say pizza, I will run over and give you a kiss.
It's not pizza. That would have been fantastic, but because that would have been the headliner. Right?
That's true.
Pizza,
Pizza makes you live forever.
Right. That definitely would have been the headline. Nuts is one of them. Seafood.
I'm dead.
See, you don't like seafood, do you?
I don't like nuts.
I had a lobster.
Well, I take that back. You know what I hate? I don't like cashews.
I don't like cashews either, and they're expensive. I don't love
Supposedly, you know what? Supposedly, one of the best foods, in nuts for you is pistachios.
Okay.
Which I like pistachios, but they're not cheap either.
Okay. So nuts is in that category. Seafood, fruits,
Right.
non-starchy vegetables. And then the last one, and I'm going to say this wrong, legumes. Legumes.
Oh, legumes. I know what I don't even know what one looks like, but
Okay.
I've heard of it.
So those were like the top 5 listed for get minutes added on to your life when you consume those foods.
I will say this of one of God's great mistakes is that corn on the cob is not healthier than it is. Because when they talk about vegetables, that it's like the green vegetables seem to be much, much better. But
Yes.
even you talk to doctors, and they're like, well, corn's not bad for you. But as far as compared to lots of other vegetables,
Okay.
and corn it is just maybe the most delicious thing you'll ever eat.
Are you putting butter on it? Like,
Yeah.
Are you putting loads of butter on it?
Not
I mean,
loads.
that changes the.
Not loads,
I
but
read
an appropriate
somewhere that corn has almost no nutritional value.
Isn't it? It's like lettuce, isn't it?
But even I forget what it was. Even lettuce has some like different positive starches and things. Like apparently corn is just like it goes in you and it goes out.
That's
of
what
you.
my doctor said to me. It's not bad for you.
Right.
It's just when you're going to eat a vegetable and you think I'm getting healthier by eating corn, it's a wash. That's a good way to say it. There's no good or bad.
Yeah.
Which again, so lima beans are really good for you, but corn isn't. Like that could have been, if God could rework his farm plan, I think he would fix that one.
So can we real quick, give me a guess. How many hot dogs do you think you've had in your lifetime?
See that? I was just trying to
You were
think.
trying to figure it out?
At the Little League field. I mean, Joey Chestnut probably woke up in a cold sweat when he saw this.
Think of it this way. If you've had 1,000 hot dogs in your lifetime.
Okay, so I'm 50 years old.
Hold on. If you've had 1,000 hot dogs in your lifetime, that's 600 hours of your life.
Well, that's 20 a year.
So that's 25 days off of your life if you've eaten 1,000 hot dogs.
Okay, I've lost a month.
I've lost a month. Yeah.
And here's the thing. I'm not a connoisseur of fancy foods. I think we've talked about this. I love plain pizza.
Yeah.
I am not, if you put 2 or 3 toppings on a pizza, to me, you've ruined it. Like the whole meat lovers, veggie lovers, I like that's just ruined it. You can give me a hot dog with nothing but mustard, and I'm thrilled.
Okay.
Or you can give me a kraut dog, which is delicious. Do you like sauerkraut?
No.
Sauerkraut on a hot dog is, or a chili dog. So a hot dog is one of those things. I can either eat it almost very, very plain. I can't eat a plain one, but mustard is good enough.
Yeah.
Or I could put the other stuff on it. It is a very versatile food.
Okay. I can't get past the smell of sauerkraut.
yes, I've said this before. The first person that ate sauerkraut was obviously starving to death because you would never think there's anything appetite. And I don't, can you eat it plain? Does anyone just eat plain sauerkraut?
That's a great question.
On hot dogs and on mashed potatoes, sauerkraut is the condiment of the gods.
Okay. The other food topic that we were going to talk about today, federal officials are investigating why McDonald's McFlurry machines are always broken. You seem not surprised. I am surprised, though. I believe it's I want to get it right. I want to say the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, is probing the situation and contacted franchise owners to get information on what is causing problems with the machines, according to the Wall Street Journal.
This is my simple solution for it. It is essentially soft ice cream or frozen yogurt or whichever it is. I assume it's soft ice cream. And that soft ice cream machines are such a pain to clean that you have to take them apart. There's so many moving parts to it. And when you're McDonald's and you figure what percentage of your business is done through McFlurries,
right?
Or it used to just be the regular ice cream cone. And as opposed to paying an employee or two employees, for an hour a day to take them apart, it's probably just not worth the hassle, especially now that we've got into the COVID world where they have fewer and fewer employees and finding employees are hard to find. It's much more important that they clean the grill than it is that they offer McFlurry. And if they don't have it, they just don't have it. They get something else. And so I don't know. So that's my theory.
No, I think cleaning the equipment properly is probably their biggest obstacle. Employee that is probably expected to clean said ice cream machine. The odds of having somebody there night in and night out who actually knows how to clean that equipment is very low.
Oh, that's true too. Because it's not, if you had one person who was the job, but at McDonald's, you don't have one person who's there every night.
Correct.
So that's a good point too. You'd have to have 3 or 4 or 5 people on your roster who know how to do it.
And you know who's not cleaning the ice cream
The
machine?
manager.
I'm assuming, maybe
Absolutely.
I'm wrong. Maybe there's some great McDonald's managers out there who do it, but I'm assuming people in charge probably aren't cleaning the machine, which means the people below are, and the people below are the ones who are getting in and out, new people coming in. So the training of it and actually cleaning it properly probably just isn't high.
Now, a place like Dairy Queen, which such a huge percentage of their business is blizzards and stuff like that, then it's a different story.
Sure.
But with McDonald's, when you're making this much, I
love it. Do you like McFlurries? A good like M&M or Oreo McFlurry hits the spot.
Well, I love blizzards.
Okay.
I'm not the thing about it is now that I'm older and my kids are older, I never eat in a McDonald's. I always eat it in my car.
Sure.
And you just kind of
spoon with the McFlurry.
By the time you're there, and
I get it.
Yeah. So, but listen, blizzards. They used to make fun of me in college, and I would be like, I live with all these guys who are all these health conscious.
Yeah.
I lived with the fattest yet most health conscious guys in college history, and I'd be like, hey, I'm gonna go get a blizzard. They're like, nope, no way, and I'd be just me, and they would make fun of me. But yes, blizzards are delicious.
Okay. So there's our food debate. I do wonder, I doubt they're going to be able to fix this. Just because they're investigating it, it doesn't mean they're going to come down on them or they're going to say you have to have these machines running. The Federal Trade Commission has no actual
Well, if they
power.
turn around and they're like, it's because we sell 10 of them a day, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's not worth our hassle. And the other thing that I'm sure McDonald's has looked at is when they can't buy a McFlurry, they probably get a milkshake. Or they get an apple pie or something. It's not like it's just the consumer spends the money on something else that's easier for them to maintain.
That's possible. That's true. Most of the time, I just leave.
That's it? You just show up for
I just leave. Because once it's in your head, and this is the other part too, McDonald's isn't an ice cream place. It's not like the board is full of other, but you're right. I could see a lot of people just saying, I'll take a milkshake and just. Mm-hmm.
Except not you though.
Not me. If I'm there for the McFlurry,
because you are a tunnel vision kind of guy.
That's me. Tunnel vision. All right, let's do this. This is, in my opinion, this story is severely underplayed. I've been trying to find like if it's trending. I've been trying to see. It is not trended on Twitter. It is not trended on Facebook. It, for whatever reason, this story, which that's a whole other topic that we could get into. ABC News posted a story about a group of volunteer Army veterans who basically, like guerrilla style, like against U.S. orders, were able to come up with a, what do I want to call it, a mission. They basically came up with a plan, a mission to get out over 630 Afghan allies and co-ops. Do you want to dive into ABC, the news aspect of it before the story, or do you want to just go straight to the story?
Well, yeah, I mean, just to kind of repeat, like there were these retired military guys who are like, well, we'll go in.
Yes.
And that's basically like, we know what we're doing and we'll go. And the government's like, well, this is what we're doing. And these guys are like, well, we'll just go on our own.
Yeah, no.
It's almost like the retired, like the old Vietnam guys that go play paintball.
Yeah.
And destroy all the teenagers that think they know what they're doing. These guys are like, yeah, we'll just go do it.
So
and they did it.
At one point yesterday, you said it was a mixture of Argo and Shawshank. Essentially,
there's some Argo, there's some Shawshank, there's some. I mean, we need to have kind of a different war movie in it, but it's just. I mean, it's almost a little Schindler's List-ish, if you want to go that way. I mean, this is Hollywood.
It's a crazy story. So this is like a 3-minute spiel on ABC News and the media, and then we can dive into the actual story and what happened. ABC News posted this on August 27th at 5 a.m. This, in my opinion, like when you read the story and you actually know, like I was reading you the story and I felt like you were pretty riveted. Like you were like, there's a lot of times where you do what you're doing right now,
and you're like,
you're texting someone else.
I'm listening. I'm listening.
But yesterday, when I was telling the story, you like stopped everything you were doing and you were staring right at me as I was reading this. This is like, from a media standpoint, this is a clickbaity, true story that's a feel good. It's Americans doing great things, like all the things that you would want. And ABC News posted it at 5 a.m. on like a Thursday. I want to double check. 5 a.m. on August 27th is a Friday.
See, I told you I listened.
There you go. So this is my whole thing. When you go through and you read the story, they basically go against U.S. orders. They brought different proposals and plans to the U.S. administration and the U.S. military that were all turned away and turned down. And there are several former Green Berets in the story. There are former commanders and generals in the story who basically say, like, it's bullcrap. We had to do this by ourselves. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, I cannot believe we had to pull this off with no help from the U.S. military or from the U.S. government. And so if you're ABC, why are you running this story at 5 a.m. other than you just don't want them to be calling out the administration and the U.S. military? Correct. There's no other, because there's no reason to run this story at 5 a.m. Right. So I like that part of it really bothers me because this is an unreal story. Yes. Okay. Just wanted to get that off my chest. Here's like the very basis of what happened. There was one U.S. military veteran who had an Afghan ally who was stuck in Afghanistan still and could not get to the Kabul airport. So what they did was they set up a plan, and the code word essentially was pineapple for this guy to get to the gate. So this guy barely makes it to the gate. He actually saw 2 people next to him beaten to death before he gets to the gate at the Kabul airport, yells out pineapple. There was some confusion. The code word might have been changed, but eventually he gets dragged in to the Kabul airport to safety because his partner hears him from like 50 yards away inside the airport. All right. Right. So
and this is it. One guy. They're trying to get one, because I think over like a 12-year span, this guy, it wasn't like, hey, I met this friend when I was in, like they were together partners for a long time.
This guy had worked for over a decade with the U.S. military, and his U.S. partner said, like, I'm not going to he's not staying here. I'm not letting him die. And he came up with this pineapple plan, this code word to get him to the gate, slide him in when he said pineapple. Okay.
So they get one guy out.
So they get one guy in. Once the one guy is in, they start saying, he's saying, I need to get my family out.
Okay. So let's go get a couple
So they go, let's go get the family. And then as that happens, they begin to bring in other volunteers. So they're bringing in coders, and they're bringing in computer people, and they're bringing in other Green Berets and other retired Afghan war veterans. Basically, they end up with this huge conglomerate of volunteers, none of which are actually working with the U.S. military or the U.S. government to help get these people out. It is 100% an underground mission, and they referred to it as the Underground Railroad, but they called it the Pineapple Express.
Now, and again, of these people working together, what did they end up with, 50 or 60 or something like that, they said?
So the one that I read that wasn't ABC News, it said that they thought there was over 60 people just working in the background on computers.
Okay.
Just on computers.
So it's also not like one guy's like, oh, I know this group of 100. Lots of these people had never met before.
Correct.
Didn't know it. They were just like here for the cause.
Yes. And you're exactly right. Because in the ABC story, they actually bring up nobody had actually worked on a mission together before. Like nobody. Right. There was not one direct link. So they come up with this plan, and what they're essentially going to do, using phones and chat rooms and GPS pins, they basically start telling all these Afghan allies, here's where you need to be at this point. Here's where you need to be at this point. And they give them a picture that has a pink background, and it's a photo of a pineapple. And the reason they did that was they would flash the photo anytime they saw somebody that was U.S. military. And if the U.S. military people just said, like, what is that? They knew they weren't part of the underground mission. But if they showed the pink background in the pineapple, they then knew they were part of the Pineapple Express, this underground railroad for Afghan allies to get out of Afghanistan.
It also meant they were vaccinated. That was their vaccine.
Was it? No, it wasn't. So they're bringing people around. Now, here's how you know the U.S. military did not know about this. On the final night leading up, and there's hundreds of these Afghan allies trying to get to the Kabul airport. In the final night leading up to it, the U.S. military actually put a block on the cell service in Afghanistan, which basically halted the entire Pineapple Express mission on the final night. So because if anybody involved with the U.S. military would have known this was going on,
they said, let's block.
reasonable.
It made sense.
It made a ton of sense. They were worried that there might be another bombing, and so I'm not saying the U.S. military didn't have the right or the reasoning to block it. What I am simply saying is they might have found another way around this had they have known what was going on. So that's how you know they were in the dark. So the final leg of this, as people are going through Afghanistan, these Afghan allies are trying to make it to the Kabul airport. The final stage is when they got to where they were trying to go. It was a sewage pipe. And at the end of the sewage pipe,
that's where I said the Shawshank Connection.
Yes, at the
except instead of sneaking out, they're sneaking in through the sewage.
Correct. Pipe. So at the end of the sewage pipe, there is a military serviceman with red sunglasses. So they were told
look for that guy.
If the guy doesn't have red sunglasses on, he's not your dude. They were also told to shine the pineapple photo, and that was how the U.S. military serviceman in his red glasses knew that they were part of the Pineapple Express and to bring them through. And this went on. This was like a week-long process, but in the final night, they brought hundreds of people in before the last flights out the next day. Over 630 Afghan allies and co-ops were brought to safety by an underground railroad called the Pineapple Express that the U.S. military and the U.S. government had nothing to do with and pretty much turned away. And to me, it is it's the story of the decade.
And it started as one.
Yes.
And then it got, because the other thing that's crazy about this wasn't 4 months in the planning.
No.
This was essentially slapped together last minute. We're going to get one guy out. Okay, now we're going to get his family out. Well, now there's all these other people that we can probably get out. It's almost, I mean, they talk about the Underground Railroad. It's almost, if you saw Harriet, it's almost the Harriet Tubman-ish.
Yeah.
That she kept going back because there were more to bring. So to go from one guy to end up with 600 and some guys. And again, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, how quickly it came together because they didn't have much planning time. It wasn't a well-oiled machine. Oh. It was like these guys. It just shows how smart and how tactically effective, like these Green Berets, and these
unreal.
weren't schleps. This wasn't private first class who was in the military for 20 minutes. Like, these were the best of the best.
Yeah.
And
so Jeremy says, I know the advantage that it's underground, but how are we getting the information? One of the ways we're getting the information is because it wasn't a U.S. military mission.
So they can talk
it's
about
all, it's not it's all disclosed. Like, it's not private information. It's not something they have to keep under wraps. So you have like these retired Green Berets that are telling the whole story right now. And that's how ABC News was a part of it and how they have it. They have direct quotes from the retired generals and the retired Green Berets talking about like what they did and where they were. And it's unbelievable. It literally, I know I've said it 3 times. It is the story, forget story of the year. It is like in the last 10 years, what story is better?
I mean, when you think about it, and if you haven't seen Argo lately, you should go watch it again because it's unbelievably good. What were there, 6?
6 what?
Yes,
I believe they were getting 6 diplomats.
It was Ben Affleck and 6. They sent one guy in to get 6 people out.
Well, it wasn't Ben Affleck, but yes.
It was Ben Affleck. Yeah, he directed that too.
Yes, I know he directed it, but you made it sound as if Ben Affleck went and got 6 people out.
Did you see the movie?
I saw the movie. It wasn't Ben Affleck.
It was Ben Affleck. So this is like 600.
Yeah.
And it's the more you think about it, the more outlandish it is, but it's the stories like this that make America great.
Yeah. And that's, so again, why are you running it at 5 a.m.? Why are you running it at 5 a.m.? If you are any national media, how is this not? And not only that, like the title on the story, and listen, you and I've talked about it. Media's like, this isn't easy. Like, I get that. The title on the story was U.S. Special Operations Vets Carry Out Daring Mission to Save Afghan Allies. Personally, a little undersold, maybe. A little undersold. It's not exactly like they wanted people to read Green Berets basically saying our administration should have been doing this themselves.
Retired Green Berets. Yeah, I mean, you just see a bunch of guys pushing themselves away from the bar at the American Legion being like, we're going.
Yeah. I mean, it is an incredible. So if you get the chance, ABC News has the most detailed version of it. They have quotes from the actual people who did the mission. It's only like a 15-minute read. It's really in depth, and it is worth your time, even though ABC News apparently doesn't think it is. So please go read it. It's great.
If you play your cards right, you can sit across the room from someone who will read it out loud to you, and you can just listen for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That's what I did.
Oh, yeah, look at you go.
And that's why I knew it was a Friday morning, because I listened.
Yeah, that's good. And like you said, and now we can have a little bit of fun with it before we wrap the show. This is a movie tomorrow.
It is Hollywood.
This is unbelievable. And there's parts of it, again, like I just gave you the watered down version. Like, right. I sat here reading it to you yesterday for like 20, 25 minutes. And some of the things, the details and what they were saying is out of this world.
Yes.
Everything from the first guy almost dying. Like, if that first guy doesn't make it to the gate,
probably give up.
Like 600.
I'm sure they give up because he was the only reason they went.
Yes. If that first guy doesn't, so he watches 2 people get pummeled and beat to death, like races to the gate, is yelling pineapple, almost doesn't get in because the code word was not known to the people at the gate because it was rushed because and then some guy randomly hears pineapple and starts going like, oh,
he's like, oh no,
crap, mattered. Right. And then pulls him in. And I mean, if that guy doesn't make it, I mean, none of this. So even just from the origins of it to then now you have the like Ocean's 11 getting the crew together scene. Like, it's unreal.
And it has to be from the movie, right?
What's that?
The Pineapple Express.
It has to be.
And wasn't that a form of marijuana?
It was.
So that's what it's all named after.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Hey, Operation Deep Throat was named after an adult film. So whatever.
No, that's what it works. So the Pineapple Express, if you get a chance to read it, fantastic. I am sharing it to anybody and everybody who will listen to me. I'm probably annoying at this point. I was sharing it with family,
why is today any different
than the other I know. But I've literally, anybody and everybody who will read this thing, I have been pushing it in front of them because it is ridiculous that this was not one of the top stories for 2 or 3 days in mainstream media.
I'm with you.
Ridiculous. All right. Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Did you have anything else? I usually ask you if you had anything else. Here you go.
I don't know. It's a Labor Day week. Are we going to be here?
Should we put Cory on the spot? My friend went on a date with Cory about 22 years ago when they met at an inaugural season curve game.
Huh. Okay, we don't need any more comments about the date. What was I gonna say? Don't take chicks to the ballpark. That's not. She better like the game.
Really? You want to take chicks to the ballpark?
Nah, they better like it.
Okay.
Because I'm watching the game.
Okay.
Like unless it's, yeah, that's a bad date. Unless she's a fan. If you take like you, okay, so you're going to a NBA game in Philadelphia and you're watching whomever, whatever team it is, you're there to it would be interesting for you. You'd want to watch this guy. You'd want to watch this guy. You'd watch this. So if you've got a girl on your arm who really could kind of take it or leave it, doesn't care, wants to go like, and you're like, no, I want to watch the game.
But see, it's the perfect test for me and for them. Because for them, how are they handling the fact that all I care about is what's on the floor? But then vice versa. If I find myself like then I'm very clearly interested in her. So I think, like, for me, like, it's a great first date. Like, I'm going to find out real quick if I'm interested in this person.
That's terrible. That's a terrible first date.
That's terrible?
Terrible first date.
Okay. Agree to disagree.
We will.
I'm trying to get answers. I want to know if the second date's worth it. You're just trying to get to the second date.
But here, so in your first date then, like, you're watching the game, so you're not talking to her. You have to. Well, see, but that's different in the world today because you've texted so much.
Well, yes.
You've already talked for hours and hours and hours.
Yes.
So you don't really need to talk on the first date.
Correct. But if you've ever been to a basketball game, there are timeouts and there are in between quarters and there's a halftime. There's a drive to the game. You don't live at the stadium. You have to drive to the game. You have to drive from the game. You're hungry before the game or hungry after the game. Like, it's not the worst scenario in the world.
During the timeouts, you're watching to see who goes.
Yes, I'm weird. 100%.
You're watching to see who goes to the scores table to check in. You're wondering what the matchups are going to be and who. So don't tell me like during the 60-second timeout you're in depth into a conversation.
I'm just saying I don't think it's a horrible date. I think you're going to find out real quick if it's going to work or not. You're basically putting them into a situation where you're going to find out, like, are they needy?
I do agree with that. And again,
I can't express this enough. Vice versa. Like, she's going to find out real quick, too, like, am I needy? Like, am I oblivious? Like, am I, like, she's going to figure out who I am.
I used to say back in the day, the best first date is, like, go for a walk and get ice cream. But in the modern, you can talk so much. I mean, when I was a kid, you just had to sit on the phone, and the phone was hooked to the wall, and you couldn't go anywhere, and but in today's day and age, like, people have had hours and hours and hours of conversations who've never heard each other's voice and who've never met.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you've probably talked a lot of things through.
Oh, yeah. Like not to talk while the ball is bouncing.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
I'm sorry. Kidding. I'm sorry. The ball's in play.
Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. And be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all your local news. Thank you to all of our sponsors.
Are we here Monday?
That's up to you.
We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it. We might be here Monday.
Enjoy the end of summer for Jeff. I think the end of summer was a couple of days ago. Jeff still thinks it's summer. Jerry's wearing sweatshirts around, and Jeff thinks it's summer. I mean, what the hell's going on? This is the end right here. You know how many barbecues and different things there are this weekend? This is the end of summer. So you can't have a barbecue in the fall?
Not in a hoodie. Everybody go have a great Labor Day weekend. We'll see you soon.